Cool.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Cool. So welcome to the Black Girls Create panel, Quills, getting it on the page. We are basically here to cry about how hard writing is, and
there will be tears shed if that's the kind of thing you're into.
That's kind of what we're here for. And just kind of about some of the tasks we have and things we try and to
get the words on the page.
Or what is it? Stop the tears and get words.
Less tears.
Less tears, more words.
There you go.
Or something. So I'm Bayana. I am the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Black Girls Create. Let's go Connie, because I'm just going. I think ours is the same, right? We could just go
Yeah. I'm Connie, Constar24 on Twitter and most places. I'm managing editor of Black Girls Create. And, I am a full-time writer, so I, dabble in all sorts of writing. So we'll see. But it still causes me many, many tears. So just so we're upfront about that. It's still tear-inducing.
What house are you?
Great question. Hufflepuff, all the way.
I think that, it was Bayana froze for a second and then Delia, disappeared.
She did disappear.
Delia's computer died, she said.
Yikes.
Oh, no.
So that's awkward.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hi, everyone.
It'd be that way.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Portia Patterson-Hurst. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Black Girls Create, and I'm also a volunteer with the Harry Potter Alliance, some kind of double whammy. Similar to Connie, my day job involves writing, among other things, which can be frustrating. And then I try to write sometimes.
Yeah, just occasionally.
Yeah, fiction.
I mean, that's what we'll be talking about, the balance of writing and all the other things.
Yeah. It feels different in different spaces. But yeah, so my real world job is more sociological writing versus fiction writing, which I try to do.
Right.
And I am a Ravenclaw.
Bayana, what house are you in?
Well, I'm a Ravenclaw. And I guess I sort of write full time, but
yeah.
I don't, I mean, I do, but it's just because I nanny my sister, and theoretically in a world where there aren't viruses rolling around, I would be writing more, but now it's a little bit different. But and then I edit and I read other people's stuff, which I actually really like to do, which isn't the point of this particular thing.
Same.
But I actually like editing. I wouldn't say I like it more than writing, but depends on the day.
And
how much it's fun to not look at your own stuff.
It helps. It does.
Yeah.
For both reasons. When you see other people's writing and you're like, wow, this is so good. I wish I could do this. And it kind of makes you feel insecure about yourself, but also you can and I think sometimes it does inspire you to be better. And then sometimes you look at writings that not so good and you're like, wow, I'm so great, you guys.
Well, there's that, but then I also think for me, when I'm I like reading with my editing brain more than with my writing brain, because my writing brain, insecurities and stuff come in, and I'm I wish I could do this, or sometimes it's not I wish I could do. Sometimes it's I see what they did there, and that's kind of cool, and I hope that I could do that at some point. But with the editing brain, it feels I don't know, you're just reading for different things, and so I don't get, it's not so much about me, and I like that, because I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I'm just oh, okay, what this, I see what's going on here, and I want to, so I just feel it's different brains. Anything that I could just be separate the emotion from, perfect. Delia is back, so
hi, sorry. Yeah, we're good now. I hope.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a BGC thing.
Anything.
Technology didn't spaz for a second, so
yeah. Delia,
But
who are
introduce
you?
yourself.
Who am I? Right. So I'm Delia. I'm the marketing director of Black Girls Create. I be writing sometimes.
And when she says she be writing, like, guys, I really just be thinking about the things that she's written.
Okay.
Just like, yeah.
Delia's like, relax.
Okay. I gotta go, guys. Sorry, I'm gonna.
Listen, if you thought this wasn't an internal gas session as in addition to a gas session for everyone
we have
watching,
a Google Doc. That is not what we put in the doc.
No, it's a double gas session. So anyone listening and watching can be gassed up by us, and then also each other.
You can get this gas.
I mean, I am not ready for it, but I started it, so I'm accepting that it'll happen.
All right. But yeah, that's basically. I had like goals for 2020. That's basically people will know about like writing and goals for 2020. I haven't done it. I don't know about like. Instead, I've been writing like a lot of fan fiction. So that's me.
Writing. That's writing.
But that's writing though. Like maybe you have like I think that's one of the things. Like having goals about what specifically you're gonna write can be hard, but if you're like, I'm just gonna write things.
Right, writing.
Like it's not like you haven't been writing things. You just,
right,
I've been writing what you plan to write, but yeah,
exactly what's happening. So I'm glad we're all on board with that. So yeah, you can catch my stuff on Black Girls Create. I have lots of fan fiction-y things, and then one day you'll get to catch like actual fiction from me.
I think that's all of us, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Well, like, first question is, do you have a writing process? And if so, what is it?
So I guess first, hands up, who has a writing process amongst us? It's like a half hand.
Yeah.
Stare at the blank page and cry.
And then scroll on Twitter.
No, check the BGC Slack.
Twitter is a big part of my
go through fan fiction. I would say though, in like actually answering the question, I guess this is a process. I don't know if it's the process that is best for me or if I've like achieved an actual like this is the process, but I think the thing that helps me start is just getting something on the page. So like the blank page is real dumb and stupid and scary. And I think depending on what it is, whatever it is, I just try to write out what it's supposed to be. Like the idea that's in my head, like this is supposed to be about blah, blah, blah. And this is what I had in mind. And I just try to get that down. And I think that helps because then I can like keep that at the top. And then if I ever get into actually writing prose, that part, I have like the thoughts up at top and I can like add to that and like random thoughts that come into my head. And then towards the bottom of a Google document, because, if it just everything's in Google, try to start writing the prose part, with the clackety clack and the typety type. Well, it's more like a type, delete, delete, type, type, delete. And then there's been varying success from then on, but I at least sometimes start things. Finishing them is a whole other part of the conversation. So someone else go.
I don't know if I have. So like, it's a process that works for me, but it's not one of those like cute, fancy processes that you see like when you in writing blogs where it's like, oh, first you have to do this and then this. It's not it. That ain't it. For me, it's a lot of, I don't know why, but I've tried to move my process more digital, but my process always starts in a journal. Like I have to physically write it because for some reason it's a lot easier for me to like turn off my brain when I have a pen in my hand and I'm just staring at a blank page. There aren't any distractions. I'm not scrolling through Twitter. I just put it all up and I actually start writing. But a lot of times, sometimes it is just me writing. We'll get into that later. But yeah, sometimes it's just me outlining. Sometimes it is me actually writing that first chapter or that one scene in my head. And then from there, I can take that and put it on something digital, and then I can work it and my brain can wrap my head around it. But I think maybe it's because, kind of like you were saying, seeing a blank document for some reason is more daunting to me. Like I can't, that is too much. And then watching literally my words, because when I'm writing and I'm not looking at the page, like my brain is somewhere else.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true.
So that's how my process starts. Then I rewrite everything in a Word doc.
Yeah, it's helpful that I can type for the most part without looking at like the key. I'm either looking at the keyboard or I'm like legit looking into space, so I don't have to like look at the words as they come across the screen. And then I'm like, oh, I typed all of that wrong, because typos are my burden.
Yeah. Do you have a process, Portia?
Not a process that I follow every single time. Besides, like, I have to map everything out. I kind of go old school, like back in the day where everyone had to write on paper. Like when I first started something, you had to do brainstorms, and you do a circle, and then you write something in there, and then you branch out from the circle, make like a tree. Sometimes I do that to make an outline to kind of just get me started on where I'm going with the character. NaNoWriMo did a really cool packet for last November, I think, of just tools to use. And so some of their character build out stuff has been useful. I'll start building out the character process. And then once I kind of get into the foibles of what it is is behind the character and why it is I want them to do the actions, I'll start trying to type it out. So then I actually have an idea of who the person is, who I'm trying to say centered on, and the reasons behind why they're doing stuff, so I don't throw myself off too much. So I feel like that's where I get stuck if I start writing without actually thinking through the how and why and when of stuff. I will sit there confused for forever, and then I'll give up and I'll go do something else. So I have to the things out first.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of, only because I feel like I just the whole time I'm just learning how to write, if that makes sense. I finished, finished is relative. So
you finished. You finished.
It's not finished though, but yes, at one point I had finished writing a book, and
you did technically.
Then I started. Okay, anyway. I got to the, I don't know if that I actually wrote the end, but whatever. Imagine the end at the bottom of the thing. And then I started working on a different story. And I could not for the life of me figure out how to even begin to write a story from the beginning anymore. Because at that point it had been a long time that I had been in revisions and working on something from being in the middle, you know what I mean? That when it was time to start a new thing, I was I don't even know how you do that. How does one even begin to, especially because when you write, especially if you're writing stuff that's novel length, it takes years to get to the point where you feel it is maybe ready to do anything with. And so in doing that, that's so long ago from when you first started. You're older, you're different, you've already learned new things about writing and your life and whatever. And so the things that you did that many years ago is not going to really work in the same way that it does, mostly because you just forgot. That's it's just I don't even know what I did.
You're pulling up old outlines.
Yeah,
what is this?
Honestly, I definitely did. I went back and I was nah, but I'm fairly sure I deleted a lot of this stuff, and don't I don't delete very much, but every once in a while I do, and then I'm just that was a mistake. But I tend to at least when I know for sure when I start is just with ideas, and I have a bunch of random notes and documents and folders with just ideas, and so I'll just stuff when it just comes to you. And so I think for me it helps in that the blank page doesn't intimidate me as much, because I feel I already have something.
That's true.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so because when I made those things, it's not I was sitting down I'm going to write about this. It was more oh, that'd be cool. And I'm not fully thinking about that right now. So I'm just putting it there and then going off to mind my business somewhere else, and then every once in a while coming back. And so then when it's finally time to I always kind of start with either an outline or some kind of like Connie was saying, this is what's gonna happen. kind of document. But I already have like a few things, so it makes it easier to actually write that part of it. And by the time I get to the point of like starting a real draft, it's trash, but I feel I at least have something.
Right, because you can't fix nothing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Theoretically.
So
I've been told.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. What do y'all do when you have a hard time starting? I feel like that's like usually the difficult part or the most
I
difficult
feel
part.
like kind of what y'all said. For me, well, okay. Yeah, my go-to thing to do when I have a hard time starting is to not think about starting, which sounds counterintuitive, but when you think, usually I think the root of the problem when you're having trouble starting is the issue, the whatever you're creating seems insurmountable. Like it's grown in your head to this, or the idea is something you're not familiar with or something like that. And so your brain is just shutting down. I don't want to do it. Can't do it. So for me, usually for me, it's a pen and paper, but instead of starting the thing, I write about what it feels like to be in that space of not being able to start the thing. So I'll write like, I'm frustrated because I really want to write XYZ, but I can't because da 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 da. Or if I don't know why I can't, I start wondering. It's basically just journaling, but journaling about the thing I'm writing. And usually out of that, what will come is the start of an outline because you talk yourself through it. It makes you sit down with the thing. Why can't I do it? And really analyze that. And sometimes at the end of it, it turns out, oh, I really didn't want to write that thing like I thought I did. Or actually, I would much rather write this other thing. But it gets me out of the place where I'm stuck and I'm not moving forward with anything. Because usually when I'm afraid to start one thing, with recent exceptions, when I'm afraid to start one thing, I won't start anything because I should be working on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that just stabbed me in the heart. Good job. You put it in words so succinctly because you're a writer. But like that's exactly it. You just the paralysis of choice is a thing that I talk about with writing a lot, and a thing that I struggle with a lot because I'll think of an idea and then there are kind of infinite ways any story could go, depending on how many elements you start out with. And so I am always constantly like, okay, they go down this path, but then what if this path is better? What if this path is better? What if this path is better? And then that's the same thing with like story ideas where it's just like, oh, I should be working on this. And then you come up with another idea and you're like, but what if that's easier to write? But what if this one's easier to write? But what if this one's better to write? What if this is the one I need to be writing right now? Maybe I'm not meant to be writing this one at this time in my life or whatever. So it's like a thing that I've experienced twofold in both like on both ends. Again, the crying about writing.
Yeah.
But I would say, well, I forgot to say that this is part of my process, and I guess it is a thing that helps when I like have an idea and I can't fully formulate it, is that I like it. I guess it's technically outlining, but I've seen Bayana's outlines and I'm like, oh, that's different than what I do. So I like formulas and templates, and I think they're very helpful for me in like going through the journey of a story. So I love The Hero's Journey by Christopher Vogler, which is basically taking the Man of a Thousand Faces, I want to say, from Joseph Campbell, and like making it into like story structure and how lots of stories are told. And so I love that. And there are all sorts of like writing formulas that you could look up that like talk you through like the process of a hero's journey through a story. And I like to look those up and remind myself what they are and sort of think out my story in terms of those steps. So it's just like, you know, the call to adventure and the none of them are coming to me right now. But there are many steps on the hero's journey, and there are other ones. Like Dan Harmon has a thing, and it's like a story circle. It's like go, search, find, keep, return, change, or whatever. And so I just walk through this story structure and like sometimes different ones for the same story, just to see how they match up and how they inspire me to like think about how to get to the search part differently, or think about how to get to the innermost cave part differently. And that sort of helps me get through the few times that I've fully outlined a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I kind of just, I mean, I'm definitely a plotter, but in a way I go in blind. And then once I've done a thing that I'm like, oh, I should like do research, or, oh, I should go like check out like these templates and stuff and see if they fit. But I never like start with the template.
Yeah,
I don't know why that is, but
that's
like,
something you're really
I'm
good at,
usually
though. Just like powering through the.
But I also think that like, because for me, I just need to get the plot out first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that like Connie was mentioning, and then Bianca just said in the comments, like getting like about getting distracted by new ideas. Like that happens to me all the time. Like the second I'm ready to like focus on like the thing I'm supposed to be focusing on, there's something else in my head, and all of a sudden that's all I can think about. And now I'm like making notes about this other thing when I need to be focusing on like this, you know, and like, so that always happens to me. And
it's
like
that meme of the guy in the middle and it's like the girlfriend in front of him, behind him, and then like exactly a new girl. It's that.
It's exactly that. And that happens to me all the time. But I think that like for me, when I think I kind of push through in that, like, I mean, like I usually when I'm ready to like actually draft the thing and just like get the plot out, or the general plot, because like it's gonna change, but like get the general like beats out, I can usually focus. It's when I'm trying to like revise, or when I'm trying to like out like in the more like in the points of the process that are a little more, I guess, like meticulous. That's when my brain starts to wander. But when I'm like, I have to sit down, like it's time to just like write the thing. That usually is easier for me to like not get distracted. I'll definitely like procrastinate. I'll definitely be like, wow, I don't feel like writing this chapter right now. So what's Twitter got going on? Like what's going on? You know, like that. I'll do that, but I won't be thinking about like some other story, because my brain is like too caught up in what I'm trying to draft to make sure like I'm hitting all the points, if that makes sense. Or not hitting the points, but like getting what I know out. And I really hate first drafts. Like I know most, like that's kind of like a common thing.
Yeah.
But they like, but it's like, but yeah, I mean, it's first drafts, and it's also like, I really like revising generally. But I have this issue, and I feel like I was just talking to Connie about this. Like my issue isn't the paralysis of choice. It's knowing that what I'm doing is wrong, but not knowing how to fix it, and knowing that I have to do it wrong in order to figure out how to like get it right. And I hate it so much, because I'm just like, this feels like a waste of time. And I know intellectually that it's not a waste of time, but I'm sitting here typing words that I know will not be anywhere in the end, and are like, you're taking me down the wrong path, and I know I'm going down the wrong path, but I can't get off the path. And it makes me so mad.
That's the thing though. That's the thing that I experience, but I look at the other path and I'm just like, and I follow the thread down that road, and then it's just like, I don't know which one's better, and then I just shut the story down.
And I don't get that. I don't get options. Like you're saying you get options, like I could go down this road, oh that's wrong, let me back up and try this. I literally have one path, and I'm like, I know this is wrong. It's like I'm walking down this path and there's like fog or something, you know what I mean? Like I can't see anything else, and I know it's like right there, like it's I know it's really close, but I can't see it
over there, but I can't see it.
I can't see it, so I have to keep going this way, even though I know that it's wrong, and I know I'm about to like write myself into a hole, or the characters don't make sense here, or like the motivation doesn't, or whatever. And like, so it's just one of those things that like really irks me, and I hate it. And so that's like I think that's why I hate first drafts. But it, that comes up again later in like different parts of revision and like rewriting and stuff. But first drafts, I think, is just that's the whole thing. That's all it is writing it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that might be why.
I've really had to learn, and like that's not to say I'm not perfect. I'm perfect at it by any means, because I am not. But like I've always thought of myself like in kind of like dualities. I always, I mean, I have ADHD, so a lot of times growing up, I would think of things as me and then future me, and I would always be like, sorry to future me, but I'm not doing this right now. But in the same vein, I've had to learn to trust editing me, like just trust that she's got it. because while I'm writing, I will write something kind of like Brianna was saying, and I'm like, this is not it. This fam, not it. Totally not it. But I'm like, but editing me, she got it. She's gonna turn it around. At most, I've had, because for me, again, having ADHD, having to go back, if I ever look back, it's over. Like, it's just, I will not get the draft done because I will be so distracted and hyper focused on whatever that is that what am I even writing anymore? So like the most I'll do at most is make a little note, like a comment. I use Google Docs. I'll make a comment or whatever. A better word for this, so I know for later that's what my thought was. But then I move on. You gotta move on. But
it took me a long time. It's taken a long time. Yeah, it took me a long time to realize you just gotta power through, and because I would also get stuck in like, I know that this is wrong, like at the beginning, and so like I could do it better. And I have the, you would think that if you start over and do it better from jump, the rest will flow easier, but that's not always true because then you just never finish it. You just literally never finish anything.
Yeah,
literally.
A commercial statement. I don't do first drafts. I just literally in my brain can't like make myself do like process the idea of there being a first draft because I just can't do them. So I just write. And then it gets revised. So that's just the editing process.
But that was the first draft.
No. This is what I've written because it comes from my research. I think it's because of the way that how research functions. It's not, you never have a paper and it's like, oh, this is the first draft. Like, no, this is revision 1. There's revision 2. This is just the paper.
Okay.
The revisions.
Okay.
That's
interesting.
So that's how
interesting.
I literally learned.
Don't call it a first draft, guys. That's what
I learned that for myself in like even like high school me writing. Like I could not, like if I knew I was writing a first draft and I felt like it was a waste because first drafts get dumped. Yeah. So I can't write first drafts. Like I literally, if I know I'm writing a first draft, there's no point of me doing it because I'm not. It will just I'll not do it.
Yeah.
So it has to be like kind of like a process with myself of like, this isn't a first draft. This is the story. It's gonna get revised. Yeah. There's gonna be some edits. So I'll see that. But like actually treating it like it's a first draft, I can't do it. Like I refuse.
That's a good point though, actually, because I feel that like first drafts, I remember in high school, I would hate writing. They would like make you write the outline and then write the first draft and like submit it and stuff. And I would always hate it because I hate the idea of like starting it over, and that I've semi gotten better at and like less viscerally like upset about because I've realized that part of my process is like to start from the beginning and like rewrite it over. But like for some reason in school when it was like write the first draft and then submit your final draft, the idea it's like I already did it though. Like I already did it. Like I don't want to do it again. And I think that's partially because my first drafts were usually a third draft of something, like a second or third. Like I would eventually have gotten to it at the end, but only because I'd like worked on it and like typed out, this needs to happen here. This probably should happen here. This probably should happen here. Get to the end. And then I'd start over. Like, I'd start over in the process of fixing it as opposed to redoing it, which is what like the first draft versus final draft process feels like. And so like even Bayana, like she's written this book and she's like in revisions and is on like, I don't even know what number revision she's on, but like it stresses me out hearing her talk about how many times she's literally started this book over from the top.
Yeah.
Look on her face.
I don't
have and I have nothing to do with it except for having read some drafts. Like I am just like, but then you have to start it over again. And again, I've gotten slightly better at like at not being upset about that and like doing it myself. Like I'm working on a thing that Bayana and Delia have seen, and I had like a first draft, but it was only halfway done. And then I was like, I just have to get to the end. I literally just have to get to the end because I never finish anything. And so I got to the end, and now the first half was edited. It's like a third draft, but the second half is the second draft. And so I'm still like working on this process of like trying to like figure out how to start over. Bianca in the chat said, it's above me now, which sometimes that is how it is. Where it's just like, I just have to get to the end because then someone else could look at it and then tell me what I need to fix. And then 3 weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, I'll be able to like look at it again and not want to like throw my computer out the window.
Yeah. I think too, like for me, that's one of the most like, it's like the weirdest thing about like revisions is so like a couple months did like a major revision and parts of it are like the 8th draft, so they're like real great because they've been written before and over again a couple times, and then the new stuff is brand new, so then I'm like, this is just a hodgepodge. This is good, but this is a hot mess, and I don't know how they go together. Somehow it just went from being like I'll be like, wow, I'm over here writing, I got this. I'm like, oh snaps, I don't know what happens here. I have to actually like make that up. Oops. It's like you're just on this train and then it's about to crash and you don't know, and then you crash and you're like, oh dang, I have to repair that.
That is exactly what writing is.
It's like whenever there's whenever you see like an animated thing where there's like a train on the tracks and they're just like building the tracks ahead of it as they go, like there's a full rail going right now, and at any point in time it could just derail, it could just do nothing, and I'm just throwing stuff up there trying to make it keep going in the same direction.
Wow, you just put it that way, and I like am having a visceral reaction because like that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
I'm just like, oh, that anxiety of like, yeah, this is the same thing. Like, imagine you were standing on a train and you know that the tracks aren't finished, but someone's building it ahead of time. You're like, you're not going to make it. You're not. The train is going too fast, and that's the anxiety that people feel when they're writing.
Yeah. And then there's like the highs and lows too. Like I swear, like it happens like all the time where you're like, oh, this is cool. I got it. I figured it out. But I literally had a moment where I wrote this chapter and I was like, this is the best that I've ever done and can do. And I'm feeling really great and like proud of myself and like, oh my God, like I really did that. And then got to go to the next chapter and I'm like writing it and I'm like, this is terrible. How did this happen? Can I not like, am I never going to achieve like the heights that I just hit? Like, is that it? Is that it? And have I peaked?
Right. Absolutely. I think it's important to remember that every writer goes through that feeling. Yeah. So like anyone watching, like you're going to feel like it's the worst thing you've ever written. But sometimes you feel it and you're like typing.
Like, oh, I just did that.
And you're
those
like,
moments.
Oh snap.
That's why you write. You write for those moments.
You're just chasing that high. You're chasing that high of like when it's good and when it's on. And it's not all the time. Like no writer that
no.
ever has that all the time. Like it may seem like they do, but they don't. If they tell you they do, they're probably lying. They're just always trying to chase that feeling of when it's like flowing out of you. But yeah, I've definitely had that feeling where I'm like reading something I wrote in the past, mostly fan fiction, and I'm like, wow, I wrote that. Okay. And then I'm like looking at the new thing that I'm just like, girl, what's wrong with you?
I feel like my primary anxiety in writing and the main thing that keeps me from writing, which is why I call myself an almost writer, is that because I have the whole like don't do first. It's not even. That's part of my whole trajectory, but also my whole like if I don't have it, like if I'm not feeling it, I'm not gonna be able to write it. So I won't bring myself to the computer or to anything if I'm not feeling it, if it's not like flowing through my brain. And it's bad because like
it's real bad.
High school me, who was like really good about writing, like high school Portia was brilliant. Like if I could tap into her, but I used to write like so many things, and I used to just like always be in a constant stream of thought of like voices for characters, what they were thinking, why they were thinking, what they were saying, conversations that they could have. And then like I'm like, where's all those voices? I have thoughts and voices
that used to be in my head.
Voices in my head that were helpful to me to write the stories. So I will put myself off from writing until I don't even get there. So I mostly just get to like a point where I'm like, oh yeah, like I can do it, I can feel it, and it's bad because I feel like sometimes all it took was like the mental roadblock of me pulling up my laptop, going to the page where the story is and typing. But sometimes that's like the biggest hurdle to get across for me is to just do it. And then what you mentioned earlier about like the multiple projects thing, that's just like my whole MO. Like I have ideas for things all the time. I have so many well-planned and plotted outlines for different stories just sitting in different folders, in different accounts, just sitting there. And I'm just like,
Tell you okay over there?
I'm stressed. The amount of ideas, like that stresses me out. And I have lots. Like I have a whole Google sheet because I had to pull them all together. And like that's only some of them. That's only like that.
Yeah. But see, that's interesting to me as someone who feels like she doesn't have ideas constantly. Like I have at least 2 like original fiction things that like I would love to work on if my brain would just cooperate. But like I also have that like, well, maybe I need to write something else. But no, there's nothing in here. It's empty. And then I feel on the reverse side like a bad writer because I'm just like, well, if I even finish these 2, will I have anything else? Like, what's the point? You know? So
there's
there's like a balance of like
it's funny that like
ideas and feeling like you have not enough ideas.
Right.
And
it's like
that's like oh sorry. I was gonna say like for you about like all this paralysis of choice, like that's where the ideas come from too. Like I think that like as you start writing one thing, usually that's how either like it's because I'm writing something or watching something or like reading something, and like when whatever I'm consuming and whatever I'm working on, they don't usually like mesh, but usually somehow that combination makes me like be like, oh, but I could do this. You know what I mean? Like at some point, and then I write that down, and I might leave it. It might not come to me later, but I think that like part of coming up with new ideas is when you're just like in the process of doing it, because in your brain it's just like open to
that's
shenanigans.
The thing. And that's what's frustrating for me because like I have this paralyzing fear, like I'm never going to be able to. That is what paralyzes me. I'm like, wow, not only am I not going to be able to write this, I'll never write all of these things and they'll just die with me. But like when I start writing, what makes it worse is then when I finally do sit down and start writing, it's because you've activated that creative side of your brain. So it's working overtime. Yeah. And so all these ideas are coming and it just makes it worse for me. And I don't have a solution. I'm going through it right now. This is live. This is real, y'all.
I will say that like I feel like at a certain point, like the ones that matter will like stay with you. Cause I have like again, I try not to delete anything. So I have all these like of things that I had like when I was in college, and I still have those folders, and I'll occasionally go and look and be like, oh, that's cute. Like I'm not writing that, but like, you know what I mean? So I feel like at a certain point, like you kind of like you just automatically prioritize what it is that you want, and then by the time you come back to it, if you're still like, that's lit, it's the greatest thought I ever thought, like I'm about to expand it, then that's cool. And then other times you're like, nah, whatever. Yeah. And like I think it kind of just like naturally happens that way. Although when you do get a lot at the same time, that is stressful.
Well, I think for me, like the things that I have that are sitting in my folders are, I think that's the issue, is that it's like, when am I going to do my own thing and stop writing fic? But then it's also like, when am I going to do the fic to kind of just get it out of my system? Yes. When I can like, so I won't have that lingering on me when I want to write my thing. Because it'll be that constant.
Stop reading my brain, Portia.
So okay. I think I have like at least like 2 or 3 more good like Harry Potter fics in me. Harry Potter related fics in me, and like 1 Game of Thrones fic that I just gotta do. Like I've gotta do these things. And then I have my whole other stuff that like are me things that I want to write, but I think it's because I know I have those other things and I've thought them so far across that I kind of want to just like see them through completion, because I never like I just don't finish things. And I want to just get them done so I can know I accomplished it and then do my thing. But it's also counterintuitive for me to not do my thing when nobody's going to like George R. R. Martin and J.K. Rowling don't give a crap about like whatever fanfic I'm writing. So there's nothing coming from that. It's just like my own personal like, yeah, I did it kind of thing. And I don't know if it's probably
because fan fiction is instant gratification. I think that's what it is. So like I have this exact same problem where it's just like I have a fan fiction thing that I'm working on. Y'all will see it soon enough. It's in progress. But like I'm like, oh yeah, once I get that out of my system, but then it's like you get immediate praise and feedback and like comments on it. And then original writing, I think we just all know in our heads that it's just like a longer process. Like fan fiction, it's like the world building is already there. And part of what you and I are struggling with, Portia, is that we're writing stories where we have to invent more world building than the stories that they're originating from. So it's like we have to invent the world building. So it is tapping into the juices of original writing, but like with a fan fiction undertone. But then, and so I think of that as like practice. It's like the thing we were saying earlier about like once you get into the like writing mode, like your brain opens up and it's like other things start filling in. So in my head, I'm like, yeah. Once I finish this other thing, this fan fiction thing, my brain will be on fire and I'll be ready to write this original story. And that obviously, is a struggle because like life and the balance of the world and stuff. So it doesn't always happen, but I think it's fine that we have these like personal goals that we want to achieve because I think it helps us, practice our skill enough. And then we also get feedback and praise and like immediately, in a faster way than like if you're writing something original, which then like publishing takes so long.
Yeah, unless you're like
little the characters a little bit longer, I guess. For like fanfic, like I've lived with Harry Potter since I was like 12 or 13. Like I've lived with these.
And then the other side, you have to make them up like you're God.
Yeah. Do you have tips for just doing the original thing, Biana?
You're the only one successfully doing it right now.
Who successfully have completed it, although you completed, apparently.
Yeah.
Completed. Honestly, I don't know because I never I was writing original fic before I started writing fanfic, like just because that's like kind of been when I was a kid. I would just be like, oh, I'm gonna write. Like when I didn't have any books to read in like middle school and high school, I would just like steal my mom's computer and just write things. And it's like not good things, but I wrote things. So like that process of like creating characters, I think has always kind of been like, I don't know. I didn't have like fanfic as a thing beforehand, I guess. So
I think that's
not sure, but
because I was thinking like, I don't know that fan fiction, because you guys were saying like, I want to get these fan fiction ideas out of my system. But what I'm finding is like, as I move through like writing more consistently and trying to build up like better habits, and I am developing like original writing stories, even when I sit down and I'm like, I thought this year I would focus on one fan fiction and one original fiction. And I've worked on both of those, but like, I think you just go back to what your creativity was formed and how you write things was formed in a way. And I don't know, for me, like, although I started way younger writing original things, like I found fan fiction real young and then started learning to write through fan fiction, which a lot is very common. But I think my brain automatically, like when it's just casually being creative, goes back to that space. So it keeps going back there. So I think for me, or people like me who are like scared of doing original fiction, it's just about making the decision and just making the time, because I don't think fan fiction is going to stop for us, but you just got to carve out the time devoted to the original thing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what it is like there's like a certain level of patience that you have to have. Like you can't expect it to come as easy or as quickly as fanfic, but I also think that like you're creating this thing, and I get like one of the things that we were talking about first drafts earlier, and how I like to just like get the plot out. Sometimes that's how I like figure out my characters, is because I'll just be like, okay, I know what happens generally, or like the general arc or whatever, and as I'm writing it, then I kind of see like, oh, that doesn't make sense for this character to do, or like, okay, I think I want them to come together in this way, or I think I want them to do this, and like be really interested in this. And so like it's through figuring out the plot that I kind of figure out the characters, and not like writing the characters to the plot, but writing like them in whatever the plot situation is, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because like one character may react in one way and one will react differently, but it's still to the plot. And I think that like a lot of it is just taking the time, and I like spend lots of time just like being really dramatic and like agonizing over all of my like characters and plots. And like, oh, this is the worst. I hate it. I wish that like whose idea was it to like write things. But like part of like the grumbling, which is really funny because then like my baby sister, whenever she hears me like outwardly and like out loud like grumbling about writing, and she's like, "Why don't you just stop writing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, never. How dare."
I feel like I was watching a TV show or a movie where like this kid was like playing baseball and he was like super frustrated because like he lost the game or something, and his mom's just like, "Well, if you feel that way about it, why don't you just quit?" And he was like, "No, you don't even get
Mom, how like." Why would you even say that? But yeah, so I think a part of that is just like having that patience and knowing that's gonna come. And like, again, you're on this path and you don't see all the other shit that you know is like right there. But eventually the fog is gonna start to like thin and you're gonna be like, oh, it's some mountains over there. That's crazy. I never seen that before. That was there the whole time. Wow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna like as you go along, it's hard. Like, you have to. Like, some of it is like you don't want to force it. I have a habit of trying to like force things because I don't like being wrong.
Problem. I don't like forcing it, and so
yeah,
then
see,
that's why I
this
never
personality like Enneagram. Like, I hate being wrong.
Enneagram 1 and Enneagram 9 over here.
Yeah, like
Well,
I really hate being wrong, and so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to like force, like I'm trying to get to it. Like I know the thing is here, so I need to find it, and like sometimes that'll be like how I get into my ruts is like get really stuck on like the thing that I know like. I have to force myself to just be like, I have to force myself to write placeholders, I guess. Like, I'll just like fix this thing here, or I'll like make a comment and it'll say yikes. And then when I come back to it later, I really hate myself. Because I'm like, why didn't you just fix it? Why do you you just left it for me? Great. But like, yeah, but like, I feel like a lot of it is just waiting and like, working on this one thing. Oh, maybe I need to do some research. I think also just going back and forth between certain things. Like, if the plot's not hitting right now, let me just do some research because maybe that'll like spark something. Or if the research is like I'm getting too bogged down, like maybe I just go back to the plot and just like figure out what happens. You know, like I think going with the flow, which is not something that I am great at, but I work on it.
I think that's the thing for me too. Like in general, just writing, like when I'm feeling in a rut, like my biggest thing that's helped me, because I have, you know, especially right now, a lot of us are struggling with mental health issues, but like, you know, I have anxiety that I struggle with and ADHD. So like, and sometimes they come together for one heck of a cocktail. But what I've had to learn to do is just also be really just kind to myself, which sounds silly, but like really forgiving of the times that, you know, I can't produce. Because sometimes you just, especially when you are struggling with mental health issues, like you just can't. And you have to be willing to meet yourself, which sounds crazy, like halfway. What can I do right now? And just doing that and being happy with that. Because also when you start feeling bad about what you can't do and being inflexible with yourself, that can be its own block. And then you just don't write. And that's not the point. The point is letting yourself, giving yourself the grace to not write sometimes, because sometimes it's going to be that way, and not forcing it to come out, and just knowing yourself well enough to know when that is and allowing for it, and when to push yourself, because sometimes it takes that too. Both and it's a balance.
And then I've been thinking while you guys were talking about like the fan fiction versus original fiction thing, and like for original fiction, unless it's like a page or 2 pages long, I've never finished anything. And so writing fan fiction has been helpful because I didn't do that until like 2-3 years ago. Hogwarts BSU, bless. But I didn't write it at all. I just read a lot of it. And so I think it was helpful to me to dive into fan fiction because it's like, oh, I can finish something. Yay. And that, I think, is something that I'll hold on to when I'm writing something original. It's like, before I was like, well, I never finish anything anyway. So what's, you know, probably not going to finish this, whatever. But now I've like finished things. And so, you know, trying to hold on to that feeling of like, I did it. Let me do it originally.
Yeah. Well, thinking about like how it ties into like mental health and stuff, like I'm thinking about I'm realizing that like so I'm a classic avoider. I avoid most all the things that I don't like. I just
procrastinator over here. Let's high five.
Very high procrastinator, but also just like I will avoid things to the very end. And so I will avoid writing until it's like, oh, I have to be called to it, and it's not called. So, I just don't think so. I will throw reading in front of it. I'll throw TV in front of it. I will throw, I have some other thing that
I need to do research. Oh my goodness, I need to do I need to buy this book that's gonna give me so many ideas for the story. I need to like look on this website and just like get so many ideas for the story.
Writing related. Like I will do anything not related to not get my mind like, oh, I should be doing no, we're not even doing anything near that right now. It's fine. And I feel like it's a thing that I have to like kind of be better about pushing myself out of. Because like when my biggest thing lately was that I had a big chapter on like, it was just a lot of dialogue, and there was like no way I was going to get through it unless I just like wrote the dialogue, and I just couldn't for the like life of me. That's whenever I was wishing that I had high school Portia, because she always had voices. I had nothing. I was just like, what are they doing? I don't know what's going on here. Why are they talking to each other? And I just like was sitting there for the longest, and I just kept avoiding writing it because I just couldn't think of what people should say. And currently I'm avoiding working on the edits that Bayana sent me because
it's me. Oh my gosh, literally the other day, finally, I think I sent Bayana and Delia the draft 2-3 months ago. I don't remember now. It's been a minute.
Because time is
right now time
doesn't matter.
Yeah, nothing matters right now.
Nothing matters.
I mean, but it's been that way for me at least since maybe January 14th. So
part of it is March just disappeared in a puff of smoke. So you can subtract 1 month from that timeline.
Yeah, I have no idea. And so I sent it over, and this is after I finally finished the thing, but I'd done a first draft, like a first half draft. So I did half of it, redid that half because I felt like stuff wasn't working. And then I like had ideas for what the rest of it should be. And then I finally wrote the rest of it. So the first half, again, is second draft. The second half is the first draft. And I sent that to Bayana and Delia, and I was just like, at least I finished it. Great. Mm-hmm. And then they went into it and like gave me notes, and Google will like send you emails. I have a thing over here, and it's like going to talk to me every time I mention that word. It'll send you emails and like updates and comments and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, Marcus read. And so a couple days ago, I finally like went into the document and was like, okay, I'm gonna start fixing things and making these edits and like responding to the comments and stuff. And first of all, Bayana decided to just like come into my DMs like, oh, I see you working. Like, why are you blowing up my spot though?
Yeah, I did see those notifications coming through. I was like, oh, look at her. She out of here.
I wasn't out here. I only got through like a quarter of where I needed to go.
That's fine.
But I was just like, I went in there, and there's a certain like thread in the story that I already know is not second draft, this like full second draft material. Like I literally wrote a note that was like, I will fix this in draft 3. I cannot do this right now. I literally cannot put my brain to this larger part of the idea that I need to fix and like make an even thread throughout the story. And so I am ignoring that and avoiding it, and I'm just gonna fix all the other things that I can fix and like make sentences flow better and like make more sense, and little character things that I've thought of since. Like once you're reading it, because I do have that editor's brain where it's just like, oh, okay, and I think I can distance myself enough from it to see like how I could make it better and restructure things. And so I'm just like, okay, I just need to get through a second draft all the way down, and then I'll fix that big thing that thankfully won't break the story, because that's the thing that stresses me out about Bayana's like 17 revisions stuff. Because you break, like that's the thing that stresses me out about writing something longer. And like the thing about my paralysis of choice is that like once I'm like, oh, this isn't working, then you have to think of something else. And so then I think right, like it's like, okay, there are 5 other things that I could do. Let me narrow it down to 2. Okay, let me pick this one. But then you break the story. You like literally have to like burn like you're writing stuff that doesn't match anything above it. And so then you feel like you have to start over. And that's the part that I'm still working on and have to get out of, because I can't have it be so incongruent in the same document. It like stresses me out.
Maybe you should try journaling, because that's what I do. Like when I do have to break stuff, or when like this isn't working, I'll move back off of like my Google Doc, Word doc, whatever, and go to a journal and like hash it out, plot it out, draw it out, like whatever it takes. Like I feel like with a pen in my hand, I can do literally anything. And so that really frees me up to play around with it. And then I fixed it. I fixed all the parts, made my notes. Then I can go back into that draft and like either start from the beginning, because I'm going to start with what I journaled, because that's the fixed part, and then bring them together, or go directly into it and revise it, whatever it takes. But like, yeah, I think the consensus here is that it's going to take time. And I think that's stressful for writers, because it's that's stressful response, but it's just going to have to take time. It's going to have to take time developing your craft, because sometimes I get stressed about that. Like, do I want to write the story now? I'll be a better writer later, and I don't want the story to be something I dislike later.
Right. Yes. Wait. Oh no.
But yeah, you'll be a better writer later. But
y'all are talking about anxieties that I don't need to be having. I just keep it to yourself.
My point is, like, it's gonna take time. You're gonna have to practice. It's gonna take time, and that's hard. But like, just understanding that and just doing it anyways, because you're gonna come up with fun stuff along the way. Because I have written some things this year that I did not know I was gonna write, and I enjoy them. So
and they are bangers. Well, bangers.
Okay. Take it down. She
said it was a gas station. So
chance.
So yeah.
You were saying something earlier that was like very much. Oh yeah. So that's something that also like in my like research life and in my writing life, I've found for myself is that I am not very good about proofreading myself right after I've written it. Like, I give myself like at least like a week or 2 weeks, then I'll to like divorce myself from the story. It doesn't even feel like it's like mine. It feels like it's just like a story that someone threw out. It's like, oh, who wrote this? Oh, cute. Like,
yes.
Then if I could come back to it like that, then I'm usually better about like understanding like, oh, like when I was writing it, I thought it would come off like this, but actually reading it, and now that I've like, I was reading it as I wrote it, but no, like as I'm reading it, having spent time away from it, I'm seeing why it's not coming through the way I thought it was supposed to come through, or I can see why what I thought should happen really shouldn't happen here. And usually that helps me.
See, that was something that I sometimes do and can do, but I made the foolish mistake of becoming a writer in my day life. And so I don't have time. And so I've gotten this, I just like have to write things more quickly. Like I used to work for a newspaper, and now I've like slowed down and I work for a weekly magazine. And so there are certain ways in which, and then like I freelance sometimes for like outlets when it's like, all right, this kind of has to go, it has to be done within the week or whatever. Like the last thing I freelance wrote was an essay about Doctor Who, and I wrote it on Sunday and it was published on Tuesday. And so I like had to write it and then look at it again and then send it to an editor and then look at it again to make sure it was okay. It was. And then it was so it's like just like this breakneck speed. And then I think that's partially why I've always been like a slow writer and a slow procrastinator, and like I'll put it off to the last minute or whatever. And I'm not good like Bayana is with like internally setting a deadline, because I know it's fake. Like I just know that if I say I want to get this done by Sunday, I don't actually have to get it done by Sunday. So like I'm not gonna like force myself to do it. And so that's the problem with like fiction and stuff, because it's like I have all the time in the world to do it, and I eventually for certain things get to it, but you just got, there's no pressure. There's no, and I don't want to put pressure on myself because I think that's not going to necessarily help the process, but it's just something that I know is like a thing because it's like, oh, in my day job, it's like I have to write this thing and it's terrible. And then I'm like, okay, I can fix it. And then you just got to get it off your plate. As Bianca said in the chat earlier, it's above me now. Like it becomes above me much faster in my like nonfiction writing life than it does in my fiction writing life.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like for me, like I need deadlines, like because of that.
No,
like
I do, but I can't make myself.
No, exactly. But that's what I'm saying is like for me, I try to like I kind of that. What I'm saying is that's usually how I am, but I think I've started to like overcorrect that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like I try to take my deadlines really seriously, but then when I don't meet them, then I get like mad at myself. So like that's not helpful. Or I guess it is, but like in the opposite way, you know what I mean? Like it like overshoots or whatever. But then I also like have to let myself like chill in some moments. So like the thing I'm writing right now has no deadline and it doesn't need to have a deadline. Like I don't need to be about it.
Well, she says that, but the deadline is me staring at her, wanting to read it. She keeps throwing little pieces at us, and I'm just like, okay, but can I get the rest? Like, I
you can't. You cannot. There is no rest, and that's the point. The point is that there is no rest.
So I'm trying to let her because I do want you to not do this to yourself, but also I want the story. So
yeah, I mean, if I did make a deadline, it'd be like December. So
all right, that's fine. That's fine. Speaking of deadlines, we're just about out of time, aren't we?
We are almost.
Almost.
But yeah, no, I think that like making deadlines for yourself can be helpful, but you also have to like give yourself some grace, which I think is like, it's a weird, contradictory kind of thing.
I'm the worst about deadlines and graces because I will self-impose a deadline and it'll be like you know, whenever you set an alarm and you know that's not my real alarm.
Constantly snoozing myself
to make me wake up a little bit, and then I'll set another alarm, and that alarm is the one that if I don't get about that alarm, I will be messed up for the rest of the day.
Absolutely.
So that's the real alarm. This right here, this is just a little
probably but then you don't get up.
Yeah.
You don't get up on the first alarm.
Right.
Exactly. So that's what I feel like. I feel like self-imposed deadlines are for me. So I feel like it's like anything else that I need to be better about doing in my life, like fitness. Like I need like a partner, someone to keep me accountable for it. Like, Portia, didn't you say you were going to do? Yeah. Like I need someone to be like, so are you good?
What's good?
Did you break something? Why aren't you writing? Are your fingers just dead? Like, what's up? What's up with your fingers over there? I just need.
Are you telling me to like actively drag you? Because I can do that. I just be trying to be chill. Just text Portia like, "Ayo, what's good with them words?"
No, actually,
so you said you only needed a week until you were divorced from the story, and then you come back in. So it's been precisely 7 days on this hour. To get that together.
Yeah. Have you met Diana? Because she will do that.
Someone to be on me.
She will do that.
I will if someone says it explicitly because I am much harder on myself than I am on like everyone else. I'm like, yeah, whatever. 100%. You can that, you know. But I will say too, like doing Black Girls Create is what like made me take self-imposed deadlines more seriously because I come up with most of those and I know that they're arbitrary, but I try to like make them not be that way. And so because of that, in practicing that, like I able to do it easily for myself, if that makes sense. Even though like my deadlines for my own writing, it doesn't mean somebody's gonna see it after. I just know I finished it, and then I'm like, cool, hit that deadline, on to the next. It's not like I'm not like posting it on AO3 or nothing. Like,
right,
just, you know, yeah.
I don't know nothing about no deadlines. And good thing too, because instead I set out, I didn't mention this, but this year I made a goal to form a better writing habit. So not writing every day, but just writing more often, which sounds super vague, but like, you know, and it's worked, but also even if I had put deadlines to the things that I thought I was going to write with this time, it would have failed. I am writing more, but I'm not writing anything that I thought I would be writing. So, you know,
that's
different strokes.
That's still good. It's still good.
I felt it still counts.
Yeah.
Yep. Well.
Yeah. Don't Still counts.
Yeah, I think part of it, like maybe the like moral of this panel, like if you're gonna like whatever, right? Like what you write doesn't like it matters, but it doesn't in that like if the whole thing is you want to write something, even if it's not what you like expected to write, or like even if it's not something that you necessarily
think you should be writing,
where even if it's not something that you think you should be writing or something that you know, like if you're as long as you're writing, then that's boom, you got it. If you decide like after you wrote it that it's not going nowhere and you're just gonna keep it in your thing, even if you throw it away, like you wrote something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is like the point. Just do it, and then whatever happens after is cool. But
don't worry about that part yet. Like you don't have to worry about that part yet. Just like we just have to write it, and that's what this panel is about. But also like it's just the thing. Like there are several steps after you wrote it, but like just try to like don't get like stressed out about like, oh my goodness, someone else is gonna see this. Like you just have to like you have to like don't worry about that part yet. It's just about the part about writing it.
That part is scary, honestly.
The other people are going to read it?
Yes, because y'all can read it. And I'm like, duh, like you're just editing me. It's not a big deal.
But an editor is the person who's going to look at it the hardest.
When the internet has it, and then it's like people have like reactions on because like the first part of my New Orleans school story, I was like, ain't nobody gonna read this. It's fine. It's just gonna go on there or whatever. And then people like were like, oh, we like it. I was like, oh, people are reading it. People could not like it too. I think I'm gonna just.
Okay, now listen. I know that the internet is a terrible the internet is a terrible cesspool, but like for the most part, you especially right now are writing in a community of people who aren't going to say bad things about what you wrote. Like if they didn't like it, they'll just not say anything. But so like I think it's just like it's a smaller enough community where you could do that. But also like work on this like thing that you have.
But also when like it's like I don't want to be the kid. Like I've been this person who like I'm walking around with a mustard stain on my white dress, and didn't nobody tell me there's a huge mustard stain on my white dress. Like
right, but like the seamstress didn't like that's that you're mixing your metaphors here because the stain on the dress is not like that has nothing to that's a separate step. Like the editor looked at it and made sure it was good, and then they put it out into the world. You can't match that with like the dress on the stain on the dress or whatever because it's just slightly off because it's not a perfect parallel.
Or is it?
It's not. It's not. As your editor, as you're speaking out loud, as your editor, I'm telling you it is not a perfect metaphor. So I'm going to need you to revise that.
Cold-blooded.
No,
cool. I think with that, we're just gonna end on that.
With that.
Go right, y'all.
For being here.
I hope this inspired anybody to do anything.
Yeah, it is helpful.
Basically, we're just like writing's really hard. Do it, but don't do it, but do it.
Like we can talk. Like if anything, hopefully you've had some laughs, some tears.
And we've shown you that like everyone's kind of going through the same thing. Like we're all at different levels of writing in this like quartet here and then of people watching. And like the way that you're feeling is valid, but also it's not just you. Like it's not a singular feeling that you're feeling. It's like a feeling that many people experience and go through and have to deal with and struggle with. And there are various ways, as the four of us have, attested to, there are just various ways to get through it. And you might have to try different ways in order to figure out which way is the best one for you. And that might take a while. It might take some time, but we'll all get there. We're going to get there. We're going to do it
together. We're like individually and then,
alone but apart.
The editing part.
Alone but apart.
Alone but apart. That's the whole point. But yeah. So thanks y'all. We're a part of Black Girls Create, which is a hub creators and nerds, or critical fandom. So all of our stuff, the like banners on the bottom, blackgirlscreate.org. You can find all of our stuff, including our Hogwarts BSU project, which is like a fan fiction project where Black Potterheads imagine, Blackness in the Wizarding
And you
World.
can read all of our writing there. Like we've all written stuff for there.
Yeah,
So
we
if you want to be
have-
like, what are those girls talking about? That's our writing. So
we've written things there.
Yeah.
A lot of people have written things there. There is fic. Okay. We do quick Quills writing sprints every once in a while. We'll probably have a new one soon. We just had one like a couple weeks ago. But that's just like a time that we set aside for folks to come together and like just write things for a couple hours. We have a Black Girls Create community. You can find that on blackgirlscreate.org. And yeah, all the things that we do.
And this is part of Small Things Con from the Harry Potter Alliance. So if you're enjoying the Small Things Con and want the HPA to keep doing cool work, you could help out at the Small Things Con / are we doing the Granger thing too? Which link is this? Yeah, support Granger 2020.
Yeah.
It's a really great campaign. Hermione, we actually know that Hermione, she's pretty awesome. And
she's running for president. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming up on the campaign and on Small Things Con. I am actually hosting the Dragon Prince watch night. We're gonna have that on Saturday night, tomorrow night. Yes, tomorrow night at 7:30. So if you want to watch Dragon Prince with a bunch of like nerds, you know where to find us.
Thanks for watching us, guys.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.